Iran's retaliation after US-Israeli attacks continues to widen across West Asia. Some of the world's most sensitive oil trade corridors are being seriously affected. On what is now the fifth day of the war? Well, a short time ago, Turkey, which is a NATO ally, said that its defenses intercepted a ballistic missile launched from Iran. This is the first instance of Tehran's fire targeting a NATO ally since the US-Israeli strikes on Iran. And among the worst affected US allies in the region remains the UAE. Yesterday evening, smoke was seen rising near the US Consulate in Dubai after a suspected Iranian drone strike. Authorities quickly blocked roads leading to the consulate. US officials confirmed a drone had struck a parking area next to the building.
As I came in, I also saw the media reports about Dubai's consulate. The last update I had with seconds before getting before these cameras was that a drone unfortunately struck a parking lot adjacent to the Chancellery building and set off a fire in that place. All personnel are accounted for. As you're aware, we began drawing down personnel from our diplomatic facilities in advance of this. In the cases, for example, of Beirut, we basically drew down to bare bones, as well as in Baghdad and in Rubio and in a couple other posts as well. So we've been very fortunate, obviously, but our embassies and our diplomatic facilities are under direct attack from a terroristic regime.
At the same time, thick plumes of smoke were seen near the oil storage terminal in UAE's Fujairah port. It sits on the UAE's east coast, right at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical oil routes. Nearly 1/5 of the world's oil passes through that narrow stretch of water between Iran and Oman. Iran now claims complete control of this critical passageway. Well, here, the refueling of ships slowed after a fire broke out. Authorities say the fire was caused by the falling debris of an intercepted armed drone. In response, the UAE firmly condemned strikes on its territory, saying that so far suffered more than 1,000 attacks. Well, from Tehran, the message is equally uncompromising.
Defensive is synonym for offensive. Doesn't make sense. Do they want to deprive Iran of its capability and capacity to fight back against the aggressors? That would be a shame if these countries take sides with the aggressors. They have already done enough against Iran.
Well, meanwhile, Iranian missiles were intercepted over Jerusalem, Tel Aviv and the West Bank. Residents rushed into shelters as air defense systems lit up the night sky. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said they had launched around 40 missiles at US and Israeli targets. Kuwait's armed forces said today they detected a wave of projectiles in the country's airspace and were actively working to intercept them. Sirens sounded across Kuwait City as the military moved to confront these threats, marking yet another Gulf capital being drawn directly into the widening conflict. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia says it has intercepted a drone targeting the Ras Tanura refinery along the kingdom's eastern coast. The Defense Ministry said initial estimates suggest the attack was carried out by a drone and caused no damage. Earlier this week, though, a separate strike triggered a fire at the same complex, halting some of the operations there. At the same time, new details are emerging about the impact of Monday's Iranian drone strikes inside the US Embassy complex in Saudi Arabia's Riyadh. Reports say that one of the drones struck a CIA station operating within the compound. Both Washington and Riyadh have confirmed that drones hit the embassy complex. However, neither government has publicly acknowledged that the intelligence facility was among the sites affected. Well, put together, these incidents show a pattern. Iran is not limiting its response to one front. It's targeting diplomatic sites, oil infrastructure, and US-linked facilities across multiple countries, from the UAE to Saudi Arabia to Israel. Well, the conflict has already led to higher oil prices, disrupted trade, and the constant fear of even further escalation. Well, for US allies in the region, it means a difficult balancing act, how to respond to attacks on their territory while attempting to avoid a wider regional war. Well, for more analysis on this, we have with us Eric Alter, non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. He's joining us live now from Dubai. Welcome to the programme. Let me ask you first, if I may. I mean, do you believe enough or any planning has gone into this US-Israeli strike in Iran in terms of how long they feel it will go on for and what happens next?
Thank you. Thank you first for having me. I think there are conflicting, as you have seen, accounts from US officials regarding how this story began. And it was for some of them, some officials, a preemptive move. For others, it was initiated by Israel. But whoever has begun the story and this drama unfolding now, I think the US-Israel goals are quite obvious now. It's at least Israel vouches for regime change, while for the American administration, it's a bit more difficult to understand exactly what's going on. It is to only neutralize the nuclear threat? Is it to dismantle the axis of resistance proxies? Is it to enable regime change? So as of now, we don't know exactly what are the end goals of this story. But what we can see clearly is a real path for escalation and a lot of ambiguity. And this ambiguity is fueling criticism of the Trump administration for engaging in a war that has led to retaliatory attacks on US interest and mainly increased regional instability, including what you just referred to, the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, indeed, if I could just jump in there for a moment. Given what you say then, what about those Gulf countries that have faced retaliation on their territory, like the UAE? What kind of a difficult position are they in now?
It's unprecedented. I would say that the Gulf countries in general faces catastrophic risks. It can come from either Iranian collapse or increased Israeli hegemony if the US disengages in the region. So just to go back a bit, these Gulf states have invested in detente with Iran and learned from the past and very recent past that attacks that US security guarantees were just unreliable. But what is happening now is more than that. I think it's the part of the Gulf's economic and security identity which is threatened, which explains the very strong reactions we are seeing right now. All Gulf countries think that Iran has isolated itself in doing that. But at the same time, I don't see the Gulf Arab monarchies wanting regime change because they are still fearing retaliation. And the escalation we are seeing right now is proof that this is not the end of the war. And as much as the Gulf countries have condemned the aggression, have pinpointed sovereignty violations, and they have been successful, especially in the UAE, in intercepting many threats. I think it's what we are going to see is some sort of strategic calculus now, which is going to be: do we want to deepen military cooperation with the US and Europe, for example, to counter Iran, but potentially retaliating against Iran, or at least quietly helping US logistics? But I don't see any possibility for the Gulf states right now to want direct entry, despite regional reverberations we are seeing.
Right. So given that then, if that's the case, what options does Iran still have here? We've already seen the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, for example.
Yes. But, the strategy of Iran is no more, as we have seen from the first day, the targeting US military base or US material. The real strategy of Iran is more asymmetric economic coercion. So what we are trying It's hitting the Gulf energy, civilian targets, airports, as we have seen, power stations, to raise both US and allies' costs during this war. So they were hoping to internationalize the pressure on the allies and force a ceasefire before any regime change could even happen or occur. So this is really a difference between what happened last year or 2024 or 2025. And the impacts, as you have seen, are terrible right now. You spoke about the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz is very narrow. It's 21 miles wide. It has all tankers now waiting idle around there, more than 3,000 tankers idle, and there are maybe only probably 5% of them which could go through, benefiting of the night or going fast or whatever they can use. But then the consequences are immediate. Oil prices soaring, markets slumping, and a lot of consequences that we don't want to see in this region.
Okay, we'll leave it there, Eric Olter. We appreciate your expertise and for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Power doesn't end quietly. Some deaths are not accidents. They are messages. A gunshot. A crowd. A country frozen. The killer disappears. The questions don't. This is not just about who died. It's about what followed. Governments fell. Armies moved. History rewrote itself. 5 leaders. 5 moments. One pattern. The assassination.